Yo, once again, it's on. Back at you one more again, Real Kens TV and the House Like Kitchen Sinks. Hopefully, you like the video. Feel free to comment. Definitely share. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And be sure to hit that post notification. So, anytime I bring you this action and this heat, guess what? You're amongst the first to receive it. Now, with no further ado, let's get into this evening's video, if you will. It's approximately 8 o'clock p.m. Monday evening, if you will. Getting ready for this Monday night football extravaganza slash showdown. You feel me? But I had to come and speak to my favorite people. My YouTube family. You know, before the festivities kick off. So with that being said, there is a message. I want to talk about living life on parole, probation. Now, what sparked this conversation or video, however you want to put it? As you all know, I leave my phone number on here frequently, and people uh, they'll email me as well. Real Kens TV at Yahoo. So I had a young lady email me and ask me a question, and she was basically saying that she was at odds with her husband, and she was even considering leaving her husband while he's incarcerated for the simple fact that they're offering him parole and he's turning it down. So she's essentially saying, Real Kens, why wouldn't you want to come out here and be with your family? All of this beautiful freedom. Why would you want to stay in there with men? Why would you want to stay in there with, correction officers talking to you recklessly? Why would you just want to subject yourself to those circumstances, environment, when you could just accept parole and come on home? Does my husband like jail? Is there a motive for him being in there? We're struggling out here. We miss him. We want him. We need him out here. This is her speaking. I have 3 kids. They're small kids. They miss their father. 7, 8, and 10. Yeah, we was doing the most. We had them back to back to back. She didn't say that, but you know, basically she said that, just not in those words. So she wants an explanation. She wants answers. Real Kens, I watch your videos. Um, and I just feel as though maybe you can help me better understand why he wants to stay in prison. My thing is this. See, it's one of those things to where if you haven't gone through it, and this is not making him a victim. I don't ever want to victimize anyone. We do what we do, and when we get caught, we have to deal with the circumstances that comes along with it. But with that being said, I do want to let you know that when you're in prison, it's like a totally different world opposed to out here in the real world, out here in real society. It's interesting that she sent me this email because Fleece Johnson over at Hustler Spirit 502, if you're not familiar with Fleece Johnson or the site that he's on, how to reach him is Hustler Spirit 502. And he was speaking about when he, first was released from prison, he realized after so long of being out that I thought the people in prison was crazy. No, the crazy people was really out here in society. Because the people in prison, we know, okay, what to expect from them. We know, okay, look for this, look for that. If this situation doesn't go accordingly, then this is how we handle the situation. This is just what it is. Out here in society, you have to handle things in a totally different manner, because if you don't, you're going to be right back in the same position that you were in prior to you being released. So he went on to speak about how life out here is so much harder than being locked up, especially when you've been incarcerated. There's a difference if you've only been incarcerated for 2 or 3 years. Now, when I say only, I'm not making light of the situation. If you're incarcerated for 30 days, for one day, that's a long time. Well, I can do 30 days on my head. Okay, well, that's institutionalized. And if you're not institutionalized, that's a mentality that will quickly lead you to being institutionalized. I can do 60 days on my head. I can't. And I've done calendars at a time. I can't do 60 days on my head. Don't want to do 60 days. I don't want to do 60 minutes, 60 seconds on my head. But as I listen to Fleece, now I'm not drifting off because I'm going to, these two are gonna, at the end of the story, it's all gonna make sense. I don't even really call this a story. It's really a long answer because I'm answering this young lady's question. And I felt the need to do a video because I can't just answer your question. I can, but to legitimately answer your question and feel as though I did my due diligence, I felt the need to make a videos for the people. And I love the people. When you're out here in society, the responsibilities that you don't have in prison kick in quickly, you know? Because in the state of Kentucky, as I've previously mentioned, when you get out of prison, when you're released, guess what? You may get a bus ticket. You're going to get a bus ticket. Don't necessarily mean you're going to get a bus ticket home, but you're going to get a bus ticket to where if they don't take you home, it may be within so many miles of being home. A lot of people don't have people. And you can sit around all day long and say, well, I can imagine that he doesn't have anyone. No one wants to come and get him. No, there are plenty of people that when they're released into society, their parents have passed on. Or if they haven't, maybe their parents are just not supportive of them. They don't have family. They don't have a woman. They don't have a wife. So they're just released back into society after serving. And we're just going to use, I don't know, 15 years. Let's just say 15 years. You've served 15 years. Now your time is up. You're released. You went in, I don't know, let's say 25 years old. So now you're 40. You're coming out. What do I do? They don't give you a dime in Kentucky. Nothing. Like I said, you may get a bus ticket. They may give you a sweatsuit if they have a sweatsuit to fit you. A little thin jacket if it's in the wintertime when you're released. And you're on your own. You're literally on your own. So when you get back out here, if you have nowhere to go, they will allow you to stay at the halfway house. A lot of people don't like staying at the halfway house because it's just another form of incarceration. You're going to stay at a halfway house. You're around a bunch of dirty dudes that you don't know. It's strict rules. You can't go outside half the time. It's 80 degrees outside and they're keeping you inside of a house. Whatever you make, they take 25% of it. Then, you have to figure out a way to get back and forth to work. So if you live in a larger city, catching a bus may not be as optional. You have to be in at a certain time, so you may have to do the Uber and Lyft. That's going to take a significant amount of your money. You still got to buy your hygiene, your clothes, your So all of these things are taken from what you're able to uh, earn, if you will, at your job. But nevertheless, a lot of people, they'll go to a halfway house and, they'll try to save their money and save their money and save their money. So the halfway house only allows you to stay there for so long. I don't know specifically. I've never been to a halfway house, and I know they're always changing the rules. But it used to be they'll allow you to stay at a halfway house for 6 months. So let's just say you stay at the halfway house for 6 months. You're not gonna have a hell of a job. So let's just say you get a job and you're making $16 an hour. It's pretty good for somebody just getting out of prison and you're on parole. $16 an hour. What is that? 640 a week? Roughly about what, 640 a week? 680 a week? I'm just doing the math in the top of my head. So if I'm off a little bit, I think it's 680 a week. Okay, so you're making 680 a week before taxes. After taxes, say they're going to take roughly a fourth of that, maybe not quite a fourth, but again, we're just off the top of my head. So what does that leave you with? We're going to just say it leaves you with about $500 a week. You got $500 a week. With a halfway house, they want a fourth of what you make. And I believe it's what you gross, to be honest. Not what you net, but what you gross. But since I don't know, we're just gonna say net. You bring home $500 a week. They want 125 because you stay at the halfway house. It's $375 a week. You spend another $75 just, probably more than that. Because Ubers and DoorDash, Ubers and Lyfts and all that stuff costs a lot of money. So let's just say you're able to put away $250 a week when it's all said and done. And you stay there for 5 months. Is it 5 grand? Cool. By the time you get your apartment, get you some clothes, you try to get you a little car because you need transportation, you need some furniture, that money's gone. So now you out here and you on parole. You move out of the halfway house, you got your own, and it's crazy because the example that I'm using this example for an individual that's single. The young lady was speaking on her husband. So I guess it wouldn't technically be that way. When you really think about it, those wouldn't necessarily be his circumstances because he's married and his wife works. But all in all, it's about the same because he has kids to tend for you. You have babysitters. You have more food. You have 3 kids, so you have a whole lot more responsibilities when you have 3 children and a wife in the house, and you're not just staying, in any sort of environment or any sort of apartment, rundown apartments or whatever. You're living a little bit. Your living scale's a little bit higher opposed if you just by yourself. If that makes any sense. So you have this money every week. Well, when you're bringing this money home and you have 375, and you're paying everything that you need to pay, that's basically leaving you with nothing. As I mentioned, you have rent, you have groceries, you have a car, you have car insurance. Even if you don't have a car, you still have transportation issues that you have to get back and forth. The kids need stuff. So it's one of those things to where you get out, you're doing well. But there's so many stipulations when you're on probation and parole. You have another whole individual that essentially controls your entire life. If you have a parole officer and he or she, let's just say it's a he, if he doesn't like you, if he decides that you didn't do something right this particular day, or he finds out that you had a beer, guess what he can do? Send you right back. Now, it's not as easy to send somebody back now as it previously was, because back in the day, one little infraction, they would send you right back to prison. So it got to the point to where guys was just like, I don't want parole. Obviously, when a person says I don't want parole, you look at them 2 carat crazy. What do you mean you don't want parole? What, you want to be in prison? What, you like being around dudes with? I mean, this is what's hot. This is what you do. But that's not the case in most cases. See, guys a lot of times would rather just serve their sentence out, because once you serve your sentence out, guess what? You can't play with my life anymore. I would love to be home with my family. I would love to be home with my friends, my mother. But I come home. I'm home for 2 years. I've been working the entire time. Haven't been in trouble. Haven't, you know, violated the law in any manner. My PO comes to the house and find a beer can in the garbage can. Because back in the day, this is how deep it was. No exaggeration. Your PO comes searching around the house and she finds a beer can, or he finds a beer can rather, in your trash can outside of the house. They can violate you. And they were doing it. Like I said, now it's not nearly as bad. But I'm sure if they choose to, they could. Or they just show up at your house and give you a breathalyzer. No, you've been drinking beer. Violate him, send him back to prison. So everything that you've accumulated since you've been home working hard and doing everything that, you're supposed to be doing on parole, gone. You lose your place. In this particular situation where a young lady, her husband is inside. So, you know, that income that he was bringing in, now his wife has to figure out how to pick up the slack, because that 375 a week that he was bringing in is no longer, because he drank a beer. And the kids is crying and screaming for their father, wondering where he's at because he drank a beer. Is it the PO's fault that he drank a beer? No, it's not. But there's a such thing called empathy. And if he's not in on a charge that's related to alcohol, why would you send a man back to prison over something as small as a beer? Or what they'll do is they'll say, well, this is an option that you have. Won't send you back to prison, but we'll send you to rehab, inpatient rehab. You have to do 6 months in inpatient rehab. But none of that time that you do in rehab counts towards your sentence. So a lot of people's like, oh man, just send me on back to prison. So when I hear people say these guys are crazy, they don't want parole. No, because parole, they play with your life. You can get a cool PO. When I say PO, uh, probation or parole officer, you can get a cool parole officer. First year, you got the same officer. Well, guess what happens? When you show up to report, because typically you have to go in and report to your probation or parole officer once a month, pay your fees. They freaking charge you $15 a month, $20 a month just for drug testing fee. And they charge you another $20 a month for supervision fee. I actually think it's 25 and 25 supervision fee. And then if you have any sort of restitution, that goes on top of, you know what I mean? The fees that I just mentioned. So you're paying these fees every month. You haven't missed. You haven't missed work. You haven't gotten into any trouble. You're going to work. You're coming home. You're being a family man. You're doing everything that you're supposed to do. But every once in a while, you want to have your brewski. PO just happens to show up. You just finished drinking a beer. You gonna send me back to prison for this? Oh yeah, I understand that I signed a contract, so I have to hold myself liable for it. I understand that I'm not supposed to be drinking. I understand all of these things. So ultimately, when you really, really think about it, I did violate the stipulations of my contract, but to send someone back to prison, you can't give me a warning. You can't. Okay, I'm gonna give you a weekend in jail, and that's bad. You gonna send me back to prison? Do you know what comes along with a parole violation in Kentucky? When you get violated on parole, your parole officer has you locked up. Once you're locked up, you may sit in that county jail if you're lucky, 2 months, maybe even three before you even see the parole board. Now, when you see the parole board, you have to answer to all the things that your parole officer has said in their report as far as why they locked you back up. So once they do that, you have to answer all of these, and a lot of it is exaggerated. Some of it be true though. Don't get me wrong. So the parole board may say, well, you know what, Mr. Kins, due to this, and this, it's a unanimous decision. We're gonna give you a 15-month deferment, which basically means, well, it clearly means, come back and see us again in 15 months. So the 2 3 months that you've already done in the county waiting to see the parole board, none of that counts. It counts towards the end of your sentence, but it doesn't count towards the 15-month deferment that they gave you. So now they give you a 15-month deferment. You have to do 15 months from that day just to have an opportunity to get back out. You've already done 2 or 3 months, so let's just say two. You do the 15 months before you have an opportunity to get back out. At 17 months that you had to go back and do over a couple of beers where you wasn't bothering anyone. Start all over again. Everything that you had, you lose. Your clothes that you started to accumulate. Let's just say you got you a vehicle. Obviously, you lose your job. You're subject to lose your family because your wife, your girl, she's not getting ready to just keep riding with you, sticking by your side. If they're gonna keep locking you up. So a lot of dudes just like, you know what? Here, man, I got the time. I'm in here. I already got my routine. I'm taking my classes because you can take classes and get 90 days off for each class that you take. They knock 90 days off of your sentence. So if you are at a facility that offers a lot of classes, it's just like, yeah, I know I could probably make parole today, but let me go on and do another 2 years. And guess what? I don't have anything to, after that, can't tell me nothing. I'm done. I'm not on any sort of supervision. So I would tell Miss Lady that sent me that email, don't feel as though your husband wants to be in there around other guys, inmates, etc. It's probably the last place that he wants to be, but he understands more than you understand it because you're not in his shoes. Now, when you're locked up, everybody does time. It's not just the people that's locked up. It's your loved ones that's riding with you, calling you, or you calling them rather, and they're writing you and coming to visit you and sending you money. Yeah, they're going through it as well. So I never want to say, well, I'm the one doing the time, but ultimately, you're the one doing the time. Other people are doing the time with you, but they're not doing it the way that you're doing it. If you know that you're going to smoke weed, you know that you're going to smoke weed. There's no sense of getting out on parole. A lot of other places, weed is legal, not in Kentucky. There's no sense of getting out on parole knowing that you're not going to follow the guidelines and the stipulations of being out on parole. So you might as well just go on and just finish your sentence up, then come out and smoke all the weed you want, drink whatever you want to drink, you know, what have you. Be sensible about it, but no one can come and knock on your door and put your hands behind your back. Parole, you have no rights, man. And people can come up in your house at any given time. They can pull you over when you driving just with your family and pull you out of the car and search you and pat you down and do all the things. You have no rights when you're in the system. Probation and parole. None. A lot of times I was always blessed to where I had a cool PO. I always, for the most part, I had a cool PO. But you got some POs just like those correction officers. They get a little overzealous. They get beside themselves. It's not nearly as bad, but you have some. You do have some. They don't like you, and they'll do anything they can do to send you back to prison. You're gonna play with my life like that? You gonna send me back to prison because I drank a beer? I've been out working all day, all week, all month, or whatever. I'm sitting in the comforts of my own home. I'm not getting drunk, but because I drank a beer and you come in sneaking in my garbage can like you some detective, you don't even do this much work when you're trying to solve a case. But when you're trying to send somebody back to prison for the smallest of things, and you popping out of garbage cans, you diving in dumpsters, you doing whatever you can do to try to send me back to prison, and that's not right. So don't be so quick to say, "Oh well, he must love prison. He must be in, he must have him a boyfriend in jail. He must." Nah, just nobody's trying to get out and deal with this system. Nobody wants to deal with that system. Getting, you have to come in and get drug tested, and ain't nothing wrong with getting drug tested. But like I said, people are just smoking marijuana, violating people for drinking, for smoking marijuana, for just the slightest of things. You violate them and send them back to prison. Might as well, might as well just, excuse me, might as well just stay in there, get your time over with. Got to walk on eggshells when you're out here. You got to walk on eggshells when you're a convicted felon anyway. But more so when you're on parole or probation. Probation is way worse than parole. You get a lot of leeway on parole. Probation, MPOs, man, they'll send you back over anything. Anything. It's sad. It's sad, but it's definitely true. So I encourage everyone, just keep yourself out of the situation, keep yourself out of the system, because ultimately it's our fault. Nobody knocked on your door and said, hey, real Kens, you're in the system today. Come on down. You know what it is. You've been chosen. Come on down. Now, we put ourselves in this scenario and in this situation. However, does it mean that we're not human beings? Does it mean that we don't have feelings just like anybody else? A lot of things we're not supposed to do. I know some of you weirdos jump on my comments. Well, if you didn't do this and if you don't put yourself in a situation, then you won't have to go through that. Hey, it's a lot of things we do, and I don't condone it. It's a lot of things we do that we shouldn't do. They tell us don't smoke. How many of you weirdos still smoke cigarettes? How many of you weirdos still use and abuse drugs? Or even if you don't abuse it, just occasionally or recreationally, if you will, use drugs. How many of you weirdos, still cheat on your taxes or take a little money here and there, skim off the top from work? It's a lot of things that we shouldn't do, but people do it. But the people that get caught or the people that break the law, they're ridiculed the most. So to avoid all of that, stay out of prison. Do the right thing. Go to school. Get you a trade. Whatever you need to do. Job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. The streets is not where it's at. That's not hot. I promise you. The streets is not where it's at. Penitentiary is not where it's at. Out here in this free world with your family, your loved ones, that's where it's at. I promise you. That's where it's at. Hopefully everything works out, young lady, with you and your husband. You have 3 kids. It's rough. Only thing I can say is just stand by him, support him. He knows more about the system than you. He comes home 6, 7 months, everything's fine and dandy. You all decide you want to have your little nightcap. You know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, POs come banging at the door. Y'all got a little wine in the, little Merlot, little wine in the house. Just you all, nothing, extravagant. You're not getting drunk or anything. Oh, Have alcohol in the house. Lock him up. Now he's gone. He's out of my life. Just like that. So let him sit in there and do, keep supporting him and being around him. Bring the kids around him, rather, writing him and messaging and let him feel that love. And at the end of the day, you're going to be happy that he went on and did that time opposed to being out on parole because it's too stressful. Real Kids TV. Hopefully you like the video. Feel free to comment, share, definitely share, subscribe to the channel. You know what I mean? And be sure to hit that post notification so anytime I bring you this action and this heat, guess what? You're amongst the first to receive. I'm gonna get into my Monday Night Football. I'm a little, you know, overdue. I think the game started maybe about 10 minutes ago, and that's fine because I had to talk to my YouTube peeps, and you all are my YouTube peeps. Real Kids TV. Till next time, we out.